Hello and welcome to the In the Pen podcast, a podcast about relief pitchers, part of the Pitcher List podcast network. My name is Jake Crumpler, and as always, I'm joined by Pitcher List bullpen expert Rick Graham. Rick, how's it going? Answer that, and I got you on a good follow up.
It's going. We're just cruising along to the end of the season. I think we were talking last week about how we're not sure if there is going to be any interesting playoff races the last week of the season, but it's shaping up to be. Yeah,
Right.
Both leagues have some drama with the Red Sox just falling apart and the Guardians playing out of their mind right now.
Turned around so quickly.
Yeah, I mean there's even a chance Cleveland can catch Detroit and win the division. I mean, they have I think 3 more games with Detroit, so I mean anything's still possible. And then the Red Sox play Detroit too to end the year. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the AL and the NL too. Yeah, the Mets are starting to play better at least. So they might pull ahead of that race for the last wild card spot, but yeah, still very interesting baseball to be played.
Really is. Yeah, we definitely discussed that last week, how it seemed like the last couple weeks of the season, especially with the expanded playoffs, seem sort of inconsequential because all of the teams sort of lock themselves in to a playoff spot, and then there's not much to play for because the teams that aren't going to make it have sort of fallen way out of the playoff race. But with teams like the Guardians and the Giants too, putting themselves back in postseason contention, even like the Diamondbacks are there too. The weird part though is that a lot of teams that sold at the deadline are now in position to fight for a wild card spot, and it will be interesting to see what that looks like in the postseason, especially for teams like the Diamondbacks and Giants, especially from a relief pitcher perspective, where they've traded not only their entire teams, but most notably their entire bullpens. And how does that shake out in the postseason? Does it end up coming back and biting them?
It's crazy. I mean, that Diamondbacks team sold everyone but Zach Gallen. And their bullpen is in shambles. It's kind of amazing that they've made this little run. You got to wonder, if they held on to some guys, where would they actually be, a game back or in the playoffs at this point?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's still, interesting to see. I think the Mets probably hang on there, but who knows?
Right. And I hope it holds on until at least the end of next week so that we still have something so we still have something to play for in that final weekend of the season. Should be fun to watch at least this next week while those wild card races and the AL Central sort of sort itself out. I was going to give you an off-topic follow-up, but we got a lot to talk about today. I think we should just hop right into it. So we're going to talk about news, injuries, and transactions from the past week. As usual, we'll head into our 3 up, 3 down section. After that, discuss the closers rising and falling on Rick's closer ranks. And then we will take a look at 2026 as we're nearing the end of this season. Not much consequential fantasy stuff to talk about. Really can't make a lot of moves at this point that are going to save your season, especially from a relief pitching perspective. Obviously, still touching on that stuff with our 3 up, 3 down section and the news and notes so that you'll get your final roster moves in this upcoming weekend. But I think it's time to start looking forward to next year. We're going to talk about the future closers, the 2026 likelihood that for each team, who their closer is going to be, who's going to get the majority of saves. We'll take a look at a favorite, a sleeper, a deep sleeper, and a prospect for each ball club. But let's start it off with our news, injuries, and transactions. And we'll kick things off with something that we've discussed for the last few weeks or so, the Brewers bullpen situation where Trevor Megill is currently on the 15-day IL with a flexor strain. We talked last week at length about how it was possible Megill could be returning from the injured list early this week, and that ended up not being the case. We should have been more skeptical considering Megill was dealing with a flexor strain that usually keeps pitchers out for weeks. And he suggested he'd be back in the minimum time. Unfortunately, does not look like that's going to be the case. So the Brewers will be without Megill for the rest of the regular season, and they'll be reliant heavily on Abner Uribe.
Yeah, so now, I mean, Uribe is kind of forced into that role for the rest of the season, possibly the playoffs. We'll see there. Megill said he's going to try to throw, I think, this weekend. I don't know. It just feels like any setback at this point is for at least that first series seems probably unlikely for Megill to get back. So yeah, and Uribe, I mean, Uribe has been great all season. He's kind of been more mediocre the last month or so. But yeah, the Brewers obviously need to get him going again. And yeah, what was once a very deep bullpen, 3 or 4 pieces they could really trust. Now it's a little bit more dicey with Uribe, and then you got Mears back, but where's he at health wise? Like Anderson just came off the IL. Koenig's been great. That's like the one guy that has been awesome, and Ashby's been pretty good, but he's also hit a little bit of a rough patch too. So the bullpen's still fine, but it's without Megill, it definitely, everyone just being pushed up a spot, it definitely makes them look a little bit weaker on paper, at least.
And you have to wonder how this postseason treats this bullpen, considering how heavily they've been used throughout the season, most notably Uribe, who's had 70 appearances this year in a career-long season for the right-hander. So I wonder how much he'll be affected in the postseason. And I know they'll probably have a first-round bye that could end up saving him.
It's true. Yeah. Because I don't think you can really go to Uribe for 2 innings either at this point. That's asking too much. So a bye will definitely help. Maybe you can get Megill back, but again, just flexor strain is never. You got to stop listening to pitchers and teams and what they say. Pitchers obviously are going to lie about when they're going to come back, but or they just don't know. I mean, maybe they're not lying, but they just really don't know. And teams obviously are going to. I mean, the team seems to be a little bit more optimistic more often than not. So it's if a team gives 4 weeks, it's probably safer to say 5 to 6. So I think Megill, again, he's kind of, him and Josh Hader are kind of in that same boat where there's optimism that they'll be available in October, but it's we're getting close to that time where things need to start ramping up. We can't have any more setbacks, so I hope to see Megill back in the postseason. That's it's just not as fun when he's not there, closing out games.
Yeah, he'll definitely be a big add if they can get him back for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. If the Brewers want any chance, honestly, of even making the World Series, Megill is going to have to be a contributor to that bullpen. Now we can take a look at some new injuries, starting with Jose Alvarado, who was placed on the 15-day IL with a forearm strain. And it's that point of the season now where really any IL placement, especially for pitchers, where it's 15 days, they're done for the season. So Alvarado out for the season for the Phillies. He was already not going to be a member of the postseason roster because of his PED suspension earlier this season, but now Alvarado won't be able to contribute down the stretch for the Phillies. Matt Manning was also DFA'd. I don't know if that's starting pitching or relief pitching news, but that was somewhat intriguing there. So I'm sure he catches on with another team. And then Walker Buehler was selected from the minors in a corresponding move to Alvarado. But with Alvarado out, the usual suspects will have to fill in Philly, namely Strom, David Robertson, and Orion Kerkering.
Yeah, and probably gives Tanner Banks a little bit of a boost moving into that that next left-handed setup role. I think this probably is Alvarado's last. I don't know. He's got a $9 million team option, which we'll talk about future closers and future bullpen outlooks. I don't think the Phillies would pick that up. Maybe they will. It's not. It's relatively reasonable price wise, but I don't know. After this year, he wasn't exactly great this year, coming off a PED suspension. Maybe they just let him go. Strom will be back. Banks will be back. So, there's a chance because I know it's the manager there. Rob Thompson said that we just want to get Jose ready for next season. But I'm I don't know if he's definitely going to be there next season. But we'll see. It's going to be it's one of the more interesting options this offseason in my mind. For relievers, at least.
Yeah. Next, we've got Justin Topa, who was placed on the 15-day IL with an oblique strain. His season is over. Topa took over the closer role in Minnesota after the deadline trades of every Minnesota Twins reliever. So with Topa out, Cody Lawyerson was selected from the minors. I wonder what his great-grandpa's dad's profession was. Nonetheless, Cody Lawyerson was pretty solid in the minors. We'll see what he can do in the majors. I don't expect him to have a significant role in terms of high leverage situations, but it looks like Cole Sands will probably be the closer in Topa's stead. However, Roster Resource suggests that a committee is in turn for the Twins with Cody Funderburk and Michael Tonkin. I don't know if that's going to be the case, though, considering Tonkin has no saves and just 2 holds, and Funderburk hasn't been excellent this season. He does have 1 save, but Sands appears to be the best option and the likeliest option to get saves.
Yeah, and Sands was pitching awesome until Topa went down, and then he kind of got thrown into the closer role, and he's been struggling since.
Terrible.
I mean, talent-wise, it's Sands is easily the best option there. Funderburk's been better lately. He's a lefty, but he's still, as far as talent goes in that bullpen, there's not much, but Funderburk's right behind Sands, I would say. But yeah, I don't think, we got a week and a half or a weekend plus a week. Don't know if Sands is going to get many save opportunities, especially if they're, willing to kind of platoon that role. So yeah, it's if you got to take a chance on someone there, I'd say Sands, but I wouldn't, he's not a top 25 option probably.
All right. And our last injury involves Cole Henry, who was placed on the 15-day IL with a back strain. He is done for the season. Orlando Ribalta was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move, but Henry was the top setup option to closer Jose Ferrer over the past few weeks since the All-Star break. And he's been solid this season, 9 holds, 2 saves, nothing spectacular. But with Henry out, that means there's room for new setup options in our nation's capital. And Clayton Beeter has quickly stepped up into that role, recording a save this past week, which was somewhat surprising considering it wasn't on a day where Jose Ferrer was resting, and it was on a day in which Beeter was pitching on 3 days in a row. It was his 3rd day in a row pitching and recorded a save over Ferrer. So very interesting. And Beeter does have great strikeout upside, was required from the Yankees, I think, in the Ahmed Rosario trade at the deadline. So definitely an interesting name in that bullpen with Henry out.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Ferrer, that's the other name that really interests me there. Even when Henry was healthy, I think Beeter's the one guy with like that type of 2-pitch closer-esque mix, big strikeout stuff. I wonder. I mean, the Yankees, he never really got a chance in New York. So yeah, it's good to see him in Washington, where there's just a wide open bullpen behind Ferrer at the moment. So he should finish out the season in a setup role next year. Probably starts in a setup role, but who knows? Maybe he, has a great spring and they want to use him in the closer role or whatnot. But yeah, arrow's definitely pointing up for Clayton Beeter.
Dope. All right. In terms of transactions, Justin Lawrence was activated from the 60-day IL after missing quite some time with elbow inflammation. He missed over 4 months with that injury, but boy, am I excited to see him back, because I had talked about him in the offseason as a potential breakout leaving Colorado. I had always liked his stuff and his delivery, but he was definitely limited because of the Rockies pitching development, as well as the ballpark that they called home. But Lawrence in Pittsburgh looked really good when he opened the season and has looked very solid since his return. And now on the season, in just 13 appearances, he does have a 0.66 ERA and a 30% strikeout rate. So very small sample size. And obviously the caveat that he missed 4+ months, but I'm sort of excited to see what he can do to wrap up the season and head into next season.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's obviously small sample size, but yeah, sneaky good season he's having and limited innings. But what's this? We're gonna talk about bullpen future outlooks, but like this Pirates bullpen, there's a lot of names. Nothing really stands out as like being elite, but there's a lot of interest. I mean, this bullpen might be fine as is next year. With like even a guy like Evan Sisk has really had a pretty good impact in his limited time there as well as a lefty. But yeah, Lawrence should be in line for a setup role next year, I'd imagine. Unless Pirates do something crazy and make some sort of splash and in the reliever market.
That seems unlikely.
Yeah. So yeah, he's in a good spot. Yeah. I mean, he could be a sleeper for holds next season.
All right. And lastly, Paul Sewald was activated from the 60-day IL after missing time with a shoulder strain. Jose Urquidy was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move. But this is definitely a big addition to the Tigers bullpen. They're pretty deep, but they did lose Kyle Finnegan last week or a couple weeks ago. So they were missing some right-handed options. And I think Sewald should help out there. I don't think they're going to rush him right into high leverage situations. But the biggest reason that Sewald is a big addition to this bullpen is to sort of help out in the postseason, because Sewald does have experience there, having pitched for the Diamondbacks and the Guardians, and has some experience in the closer role as well. So if they want to use Will Vest in more of a high leverage situation, Sewald could definitely take over in the ninth. It will be interesting, though, to see how that bullpen hierarchy shakes out in Detroit, especially considering the ascension and resurgence of Rafael Montero.
Yeah, he's been great for the most part. And I'm guessing Kyle Finnegan will be back as well. So
right,
they'll have some options. But yeah, it's funny that Sewald's back now, and I just imagine if he's it comes down to one game between Detroit and Cleveland, and he ends up like closing out the game against Cleveland after they traded him. And yeah, it's funny how these things work out. With a lot of these sellers are like back into the mix. So. Yeah, I'm just excited to see it's Paul Sewald's time to pitch again. So hopefully we get some good memes in the postseason. But yeah, just good to see him healthy. And it's looking like that Tigers bullpen from last year, where I think they'll just be able to kind of throw anyone out there at any inning, and it's not too surprising. So you can see Sewald in the 5th or the 9th. Same with like Vest, really. So yeah, a lot of options for AJ Hinch there.
Dope. All right. And that will wrap up our injuries, news, and transactions from the past week. Next, we'll head into our 3 up, 3 down section. But first, we're going to take a quick break here on In the Pen. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here with Rick Graham on In the Pen, discussing relief pitchers. We're heading into our 3 up, 3 down section, where we discuss the closers rising and falling on Rick's weekly closer ranks. We'll start with our risers, beginning with Cade Smith, who has looked very solid recently. Is there any other reason why Cade Smith is rising other than his recent performance?
Yeah, just really recent performance. He's gotten back on track, and again, when we talk about usage, I mean, he's been overworked, no doubt. But he's just plowing through it and racking up saves. So yeah, I mean, over since his last, he had bad outing in September 2nd in Fenway, and since then he's only allowed 3 base runners over 7 innings, striking out 14. So that's kind of the Cade Smith we were used to last year and parts of this season. So. Yeah, I mean, the Guardians clearly still fighting for a playoff spot. They're going to keep running them out there, along with Hunter Gaddis and the rest of that bullpen. So yeah, I just I'm not as worried about Cade Smith when he had a little bit of a issue in August where his velo was down, he was not getting good results, but it seems to be corrected.
Right. Right after the All-Star break, it did seem a little bit concerning for him. You mentioned all the way through September 2nd was his last bad outing. He had a 4.12 ERA during that time, and the strikeout rate was at just 26%. But since that outing on September 2nd that you mentioned, just unreal strikeout minus walk numbers. 56% strikeout rate, 0 walks, and that's in 9 frames for the right-hander Cade Smith. So pretty impressive stuff. He's allowed just 1 run during that time on a solo homer. So Cade Smith seems to be back and just in perfect time as the Guardians are closing in on a potential wild card spot, and he has a chance to really make a name for himself in the postseason. Our next riser is Emilio Pagan of the Cincinnati Reds. It's pretty incredible that he's held on to this role all season. I think we were pretty much calling it like doomsday when Pagan signed with the Reds. Like, why would a guy who's home run prone go to the most home run prone ballpark in all of baseball? And it really hasn't affected him too much. Why is he rising this week, though?
I think, again, similar to Cade Smith, where there was, a bit of a rough patch. And I was like, all right, he might have to, give up this role to Tony Santillan, but he's righted the ship and still, he's been pitching better lately and still is the closer. There hasn't been a ton of save chances for him. That's been an issue. I mean, he's got only 2 saves over the past month, whereas Santillan has 3. So it's not like there's a ton going around here, but the Reds are still winning. So I feel like eventually they're down the stretch, they'll find a couple saves for Pagan. But either way, he's been pitching better lately. And yeah, it looks like he's going to finish the season as the closer there.
Over the past 2 weeks for Pagan, in 6 innings, he's recorded just 1 save, but the strikeouts and walks are in a really good spot. 11 strikeouts to 1 walk, giving him a 50% strikeout rate and a sub 5% walk rate. So pretty great numbers that suggest future success for Pagan. If only the Reds can line things up to get him some more saves down the stretch. Our last riser is Sean Newcomb of the A's. They have not really anointed a closer since trading Mason Miller, but Newcomb has just been an incredible acquisition from the Red Sox. He hasn't gotten a ton of saves. He did get 1 this past week, but so did 2 other pitchers on the A's. However, Newcomb has been just so spectacular since leaving Boston.
Yeah, they're kind of spreading things out right now. I was excited that Newcomb got a save this week eventually, and then it went to Hogan Harris and
Michael Kelly.
But anyway, it's Newcomb has not gotten, and probably because he hasn't gotten a ton of saves, hasn't really gotten the recognition that he deserves. And he's about to be a free agent, and he'll definitely get a guaranteed contract this offseason. I don't think he's going to close somewhere, but he'll definitely be in the mix to be a setup guy somewhere. He's the way he's transitioned to this late inning role with the A's. He's really kind of broken out here. So we talk about starter turn relievers having big time success or breakouts. Newcomb's one of the next guys in line. I just wish there were more saves, but he'll be a fun holds guy next year, I'm sure, wherever he latches on.
Since June 21st, Newcomb has pitched to a 1.15 ERA in 39 innings, and that has come with a pretty decent number of strikeouts at 28%. He doesn't really walk anybody either, so pretty impressive numbers. 1.15 ERA over 3 months is very spectacular from the Southpaw Sean Newcomb. Do you want to put the next coupling in this section or the next one?
I just want to. This is like limbo, purgatory, whatever you want to call it. It's whatever's going on in Chicago with Brad Keller and Andrew Kittredge, because last week I was pretty sure that Keller would be the guy getting saves with Palencia out. Kittredge got the first 3 and then flipped the script, and now Keller's getting the saves and Kittredge is working the 7th inning. So it's like they're not up, they're not down, but they're interesting because they're both pitching really well. They're both getting saves. It could be a little bit, if one of them was if Keller was getting all the saves, then he'd have 5 saves by now, or vice versa with Kittredge. So it's a little annoying that they're splitting the role, but they're both been valuable in some way. So it's they're kind of up, kind of down, but nonetheless, I do think there's fantasy value with both of them for the remainder of the season as they probably continue to split the closer role. It seems like that's the way things are going to go.
I was thinking of comparing them to the aforementioned Cole Sands, who took over the Twins closer role after Topa landed on the IL. And I feel like I'd prefer either one of the Cubs relievers over Sands because they probably will each have more saves than Sands does down the stretch, considering he's not guaranteed the closer role, and they're both going to pitch better than him, especially with the strikeouts and the ratios.
Definitely prefer them. I mean, they're probably, it's kind of like what was happening in Detroit before Finnegan got hurt with Vest and Finnegan. It's like they're splitting the role, but they're still like you're getting a save or 2 a week still from them. There's still value there. Especially we just talked about like a guy like Pagan who has only got 2 saves over the past month, and it's like he's the full-time closer there, and he's only gotten 2 saves. So obviously saves are impossible to predict. But the team like the Cubs, even though they've clinched a playoff spot, they're still gonna be playing to win. They'll still throw out Keller or Kittredge in the 9th inning. So, yeah, there'll be plenty of opportunity, or enough opportunities for them down the stretch that they're both valuable in my opinion.
All right. Now let's take a look at our fallers, beginning with the guy you just mentioned, Will Vest of the Tigers. He has not been too strong in the second half. He's still probably the best option in Detroit and will definitely get the majority of saves down the stretch. But with Sewald returning and the possibility of somebody like Kyle Finnegan returning from the IL, maybe they eat even more into his save opportunities, but he's definitely not been at his best recently.
Yeah, and even between Sewald, Finnegan, maybe even like Montero we were talking about before, who does have some closer experience down, at some point in his career. But yeah, even the games Finnegan has closed out this month, it's still like he's allowing a lot of base runners. Obviously he had a bad game on Tuesday night. So yeah, I wonder. I don't think there's much of a risk. I don't think he's going to lose the job. He might just see more. Go back to being more of that high leverage guy, and yeah, like someone else fills in the 9th here and there. I think we're going to see that. I don't think Vest is going to be the strict 9th inning guy moving forward. So still a good reliever, having just in a bad rough patch right now. Hopefully he can figure it out for the postseason. But yeah, he's allowed base runners in his last 6-7 games. And not just one, it's like, it's a few per game. So yeah, it's been a little rough sledding for him lately. I wonder if Sewald just does come again. If he's healthy, if he looks good, I wouldn't be surprised if he closes out a game this weekend.
That would certainly be intriguing if you have like super deep rosters where I don't know what kind of league you'd have to be in to have that, and you have a chance to just throw Sewald in there, might as well take a chance.
It'd be like a deep AL only.
Right.
Yeah,
something like that.
No.
Could get you that save that wins you your league, but don't bet on it. Don't come crying to us if it doesn't work out. Our next faller is Ryan Walker, who took over the closer role in San Francisco after Randy Rodriguez was diagnosed with requiring Tommy John surgery, and he had been pitching so well over the summer, especially since the trade of Camilo Doval, that I was pretty excited to see Walker claim that role in San Francisco because I thought he would close the season strong and honestly put himself in the running to open the season as the closer next year. And while that could still be the case and probably is likely the case, he's not been good since taking over the closer role, and he's forgotten how to strike people out. I mean, the last 5 outings he's had, he's allowed 4 runs total, a 10.80 ERA, but it's come with just 1 strikeout to a total of 3 walks. He's really not been at his best very recently, and it's unfortunate timing for Ryan Walker.
Yeah, and we just like talking about Vest allowing multiple base runners in outings. I mean, over Walker's last 6 outings, 5 times he's allowed at least 2 base runners, which like whenever you have 2 base runners as a closer, then you're playing with fire, because obviously someone's on second base, whether that's the tying run, go ahead run, whatever, or you're a home run away from blowing the game too. Or so with Walker, I mean, I was just hoping, like you said, like once Randy Rodriguez went down, I was hoping, all right, Walker can get a chance to reclaim that role, and then there'll be no question about who is going to be the closer next season. But now I feel like he's like leaving the door open a little bit here. He's obviously, there's a week left to play, but these last couple outings have been rough. And like you said, the runs haven't even been the biggest issue. It's just the base runners, the lack of swing and miss, no strikeouts. It's we'll see what happens if he can finish strong. And I don't know what San Francisco's plans are this offseason. Obviously, internally, he's their best option to close next year. But again, they could always go. There's a lot of good free agent closers out there this offseason, so Walker's not guaranteed anything next year.
Okay, and our last faller is Bryan Abreu, the closer for the Astros. Similar situation to Walker, where the closer of his club placed on the IL, and Abreu finally got a chance. And it seems like we had quite a few guys get an opportunity to take over a closer role that we had sort of been hoping to do that. I think Abreu or Uribe falls under the same. Abner Uribe falls into the same boat as that too. And I'm sure there's a couple other I could pull out of a hat if I had the time to spend on it. But nonetheless, he hasn't really taken to that role as well as you'd like. He's pitched so well over the past few seasons that it was like, hey, Bryan Abreu might be the best non-closer in baseball. And he should, if he were to get an opportunity as a closer, he's like an automatic top 10 guy. And while the stuff and season-long numbers suggest that that's still the case, he has not been exceptional since taking over the closer role. And while he has settled down in terms of allowing runs over the past week and recorded 3 saves since the 10th of September, he did not really have any clean outings in those as well. His last 2 outings in which he allowed no runs and got saves, he combined to allow 7 base runners, not great, while striking out only 2. So there's certainly some concern that Abreu might start blowing up at the wrong time for the Astros, but he's definitely not been the top 10 closer we expected when he claimed the closer role in Houston.
Yeah, and I guess to his credit or whatever, it's, fatigue's probably setting in at this point. He's at 68 innings. He hasn't missed any time this year, so but that being said, he has been a workhorse for them the last few seasons. I mean, he's been over 70 innings the last 2. So they're used to him, getting this type of workload. But yeah, something, it's a different animal when you're in the closer role compared to being in the 7th or 8th inning guy. And he's been so locked into that for the last 3 years. So yeah, getting a chance to kind of run with the closer role. Yeah, maybe it's just not something, it's just a bit of a, different thing for him that he's got to get over. But as far as next year, I'm not concerned about him not like regressing or not being a great holds option. He's still that. But yeah, just as far as, like we said, we're hoping he'd be like a top 5, 6 closer. I don't know if that's really what he is right now.
And if you were sort of holding on to Josh Hader or sort of resistant of accepting Abreu as the closer through the end of the season, Hader has not started to throw again and that was the update we got on the 12th of September last week. So he's been now out for a month and no news that Hader is getting close to throwing or anything. And the last news we had before the news that he hadn't thrown was that it would take him 3 weeks to ramp up once he starts throwing again. So it's getting dangerously close to Hader being ruled out for the entire playoffs as well. Obviously, they could rush him back, but it really does not seem like Hader's going to be back anytime soon. So Astros fans and fantasy managers better get used to Bryan Abreu as the closer in Houston.
It's just another headache from the Astros. As far like the last I see an update from 2 days ago where it's like no set timetable, could resume throwing soon. It's like, what is that? What does that do for me? What does that mean? What's
how are you supposed to take action on that?
It's just the same, all the injury news from that team, man. It's headache inducing. Yeah.
Yordan Alvarez not really helping it either.
No.
All right. Well, that will wrap up our 3 up, 3 down section. To recap, our risers were Cade Smith, Emilio Pagan, and Sean Newcomb. In our, what did you call it?
Our limbo.
Yes, that's right. Our limbo tier, our heck tier, Brad Keller and Andrew Kittredge. And then our fallers were Will Vest, Ryan Walker, and Bryan Abreu. Make sure to check out Rick Graham's, that's the guy right next to me, weekly closer ranks over on pitcherlist.com. And now we'll head into our main topic and take a look at 2026 probabilities for every team's closer. But first, we're going to take another break here on In the Pen. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here with Rick Graham on In the Pen. We are heading into our main topic to discuss the future closers of 2026 bullpens. We're going to go through every single team. And as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, we're going to discuss the favorite, a sleeper, a deep sleeper, and an interesting prospect for each team. We will sort of rush through some of the teams in terms of saving time. Some teams it's very obvious. Like I don't even in some cases, there's no way that team is going to have any other closer unless an injury occurs.
Yeah.
But do you have any other caveats to?
You don't have to mention. We don't have to mention these prospects either, because these are like just. These are just more for just reference. I mean, I looked at Fangraphs, like guys who have a 70 grade fastball and like a decent breaking ball, and that's basically how I came up with those. But right. I'm thinking if there's some that are interesting. I do after we put this podcast out, I'll probably post a link to this sheet for those who are interested. It's probably something I'll try to update throughout the off season, especially when moves start happening. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we can totally also just mention the names and not discuss them, because I mean, I recognize like 2 of these names anyway. So, I like the Giants one. All right, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Let's start with the AL East and kick it off with the Orioles, where, they lost Felix Bautista. He's out for the rest of the season. We've seen Keegan Aiken take over the closer role there, and there's really not much else in that Orioles bullpen or even in the prospect scene that suggests we have an idea who's going to be the closer next year. I would not be surprised if the Orioles go out and get a closer in free agency for next season. But right now, Keegan Aiken is the favorite. I think probably the next man up and a sleeper in this bullpen is Yennier Cano, as he's been one of the top setup men for them over the past couple of years. A deep sleeper, though, Cade Stroud for the Orioles. He's a younger prospect. I think he started out as a starting pitcher, if I'm correct. Nope, he's always been a relief pitcher, but he's been really great in his MLB debut this year with a 1.57 ERA. And prospect to keep an eye on is Kiefer Lord. Who do you want to discuss here? Is it Keegan Aiken's potential at being the closer, or is it somebody like Cade Stroud that could potentially come out of nowhere and claim that role with a hot spring?
Yeah, Stroud's like the one guy on the roster right now that kind of fits the mold of being a potential closer. The strikeout stuff's not there yet, but prototypical closer, big stuff, big guy.
And it was there in the minors.
Yeah, and it's it's obviously limited sample size, only 23 innings pitched at the major league level. Still has had success, only a 1.57 ERA. So, but yeah, I don't think the Orioles are looking to. That would be like if the Orioles really punt next year. I don't see them being comfortable with Stroud as the closer. I don't think they're comfortable with Aiken or Cano either. I give Aiken 30% chance, Cano 10%. Aiken's been better lately. He's been pretty good. But that adds up to 45%. So yeah, I'd say 55%. Better than 50% chance that they go out and find a closer, at least for next year, maybe long term. I mean, who knows how Felix Bautista comes back in 2027, what his health will look like. So the Orioles don't throw around money, but good free agent class for closers. Maybe they look to make a splash. I don't know. I feel like Devin Williams could be interesting for them. But I don't know if they're going to commit that type of money to a closer. We'll see.
We will see. Next, we've got the Boston Red Sox, and this one seems pretty clear. Aroldis Chapman, after signing a midseason extension, is the clear favorite for saves in Boston. The next man up, and probably a sleeper, is Garrett Whitlock. He seems to be the clear-cut second best reliever in this bullpen. Has always had pretty decent closer stuff, but just needs the opportunity. He also has the ability to go multiple innings, so that's almost a reason for him not to be the closer because of the flexibility of his role. Justin Slayton is the deep sleeper here, and he was a guy who, even at the beginning of this season, was sort of in the running for the closer role. I mean, we didn't really know who it was going to be. Liam Hendricks was in there as well, but Slayton's success in his rookie campaign pointed to him being a potential to be the closer. And then a prospect to keep an eye on is Juan Valera, but this one seems pretty clear-cut Aroldis Chapman unless an injury occurs.
Yeah, that's Chapman unless he's injured or just has a really bad spring. I don't think they're going to go out and add any significant closer. So yeah, it's Chapman's role to lose.
Okay, next we've got the New York Yankees, where David Bednar has taken over the closer role after the Yankees acquired a bunch of closers at this year's trade deadline. Bednar being the best of them, finding the most success. So he's got a 75% chance, according to Rick, to be the closer to open the season next year for the Yankees. It makes sense considering he's had success this year. They're going to be losing guys like Devin Williams, as you mentioned. So I think it makes sense. Is Luke Weaver also a free agent?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. That makes sense. Then probably a sleeper here, and definitely more of a lower key sleeper, a 10% probability of being the closer. Camilo Doval, who was the Giants closer prior to being traded to the Yankees. He's not been at his best since a couple great seasons to open his career. And then a deep sleeper is Fernando Cruz, who's got big strikeout stuff, not really a closer with his tendency to walk the bases loaded, not necessarily. That's more anecdotal in terms of he walks a lot of guys, doesn't have great control. And then a prospect to keep an eye on is Carlos LaGrange. I was literally just looking at the Yankees prospects today. Isn't he a starter?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys are starters, but they're probably going to eventually turn into relievers at some point. Just based on, just you can only have 5 or 6 starters at a time. So
totally.
But yeah, LaGrange has big time stuff and no command. So it could be a fun relief prospect. But yeah, Bednar. So I left 10% out there for maybe the Yankees throw some money at someone, make a trade.
Like Edwin Diaz or something.
Yeah, maybe they're like, the bullpen was all up and down this year. Maybe they're like, you know what, we're not settling for that. And they're losing Devin Williams and Luke Weaver. I know both guys have struggled this year, but they're still big pieces. So maybe they go out, throw money at a Weaver Edwin Diaz, or maybe even more of a settled closer like Iglesias, Robert Suarez, something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I think Bednar is definitely the favorite. I would get 75% more than not. I think he will be the closer. He's just pitched better than Doval since coming over, and he's got the trust of Aaron Boone there. So yeah, he's the favorite for now.
Makes sense. Next, we've got the Rays, and Pete Fairbanks is clearly the favorite here. He's been the closer for this club for a few years now, and this is a club that sort of made famous and made popularized was the word I was looking for, the closer committee. So Pete Fairbanks seems to be putting the Rays back into traditional closer usage. I think the only reason he would be below where he's at at 60% is because the potential that the Rays would trade him.
Yeah,
I think that's in my mind where that
he's
is.
There, he's closing. Yeah,
right. And they'll probably either way, no matter how well they're performing, trade him at next year's trade deadline. But that would mean Edwin Uceta would probably get the first chance at the closer role. He's got a 25% chance at being the closer. He's been exceptional for the Rays over the past couple of seasons. A deep sleeper though is Brian Baker, and I could see that working out because they have so many options in this bullpen that Baker sort of lines up to be the closer so that they can use guys like Griffin Jackson, Edwin Uceta, Garrett Clevenger, and Mason Montgomery, and all these names in less traditional roles, using them throughout the ball game, and that could really shut down offenses. And a prospect to keep an eye on is Brody Hopkins.
Yeah, I think I didn't include Jackson here because I do feel like he's going to move into the rotation. I think either him or Uceta do. So those guys are kind of interchangeable at that 25%. But yeah, Fairbanks 60%. As long as he's there, I'd imagine he's closing. And yeah, I don't think they're going to go out. It's going to be someone internally on this roster. Baker could definitely be a closer. There's a couple guys here that could be, and obviously I've not given up totally on Mason Montgomery as well. So, but yeah, Fairbanks is there. He'll be the closer. If he's not, then it definitely opens up some things. Maybe they go back to that committee we were talking about.
All right, and to wrap up the AL East, the Blue Jays have Jeff Hoffman under contract for a couple more years, so he's going to be the closer to open next season unless something drastic changes. He's been the closer all year long. I think the Blue Jays aren't really inclined to move away from him, and they don't really have an option to go beside him that's super obvious. Like Jimmy Garcia will be back from injury next year. He should probably be the next man up. But Sir Anthony Dominguez is going to be a free agent. I think Yariel Rodriguez is also going to be a free agent, if I remember correctly.
I'm not
Fangraphs
sure.
is not working today. We're getting a lot of 500 internal server errors, so I cannot figure that one out.
No, he's a free agent in 2029. He'll be back. Okay. He's not. I don't really see him as a potential closer.
No. But somebody like Louis Varland, maybe, deep sleeper, he's got some potential as a closer. It would just be very, very unlikely for that to happen. And especially if a prospect like TJ Brock were to get the opportunity, that's probably unlikely given the amount of money the Blue Jays have put into Jeff Hoffman and how much confidence they've had in him as the closer all year this year.
Yeah, I think it's been a struggle for Hoffman this year. But again, a lot of really bad luck with home runs. I don't think that plays out the same way next year. So yeah, and they haven't really lost confidence in him. So if barring like a crazy bad postseason as well, I think it's pretty safe to say he's going to be their closer opening next year.
All right. Now we'll head into the AL Central and start with the White Sox, where the favorite appears to be Jordan Leisure. He was somebody who was the favorite last year. Things didn't really pan out. He didn't get an opportunity to open this season, but has really locked things down in the second half, displaying pretty dope strikeout stuff with a decent fastball, and he's found a lot of success. There's not a ton of competition in the White Sox bullpen, though. Somebody like Mike Vassell does have 4 saves on the season. He is younger than Jordan Leisure. He's just not really as closer-esque as Leisure, but you never know where the White Sox go here. And if Grant Taylor doesn't enter the rotation, he would definitely be a deep sleeper to take over this role. He had it for a brief period of time, and he's got even better strikeout stuff than Leisure and Vassell, but he's somebody who I think is more inclined for the rotation and doesn't seem as consistent than the other two. A prospect that's of interest is Pierce George, but I feel like you could even bump Jordan Leisure up from the 40% that you currently have him at.
Yeah, I'm torn between like 40, 50, maybe even 60. I mean, I don't think I'll go more than 50 because they're not even using him as the full-time closer now.
Right.
But yeah, they're probably not gonna. I mean, there's like 20% I left out there for either someone outside of the organization, someone else that isn't one of these top 3. Because they really haven't been willing to name someone the closer. But Leisure has been awesome last couple months. He deserves the role. I guess I might push it towards 50 because I mean it's pretty clear to me that he's like their best reliever and he should be the guy. But it would just be nice to see some like confirmation from the White Sox that they're thinking along the same lines and like they would be interested. They'd be willing to give him that role because I mean I don't know if they're trying to save money by not having him get a ton of saves or what it is, but he's clearly the guy there.
Next, we've got the Cleveland Guardians, and we already talked about Cade Smith, and with Emmanuel Clase still suspended and are still on administrative leave and likely heading towards a suspension. I feel like the fact that Clase hasn't returned this year, that we haven't heard any news, I feel like he's got to be out for at least all of next season because I don't know if he's going to be kicked out of baseball, but considering the suspensions that were levied to the few relievers that were suspended at the end of last year, I don't expect Clase to return next year. You could put him out as the deep sleeper here instead of Andrew Walters, considering Walters doesn't have a percentage given to him because Cade Smith is going to be the closer and Hunter Gaddis is the backup if anything happens to Cade Smith. But I feel like Clase may even have a better chance at being a potential closer. That is if the suspension isn't season ending, like if it's only 80 games or something. Or if he doesn't get suspended at all. But there is a potential for prospect Daniel Espino to work his way into the bullpen. I think his time as a starter is done. That guy just cannot stay healthy. But Cade Smith certainly going to be the favorite and probably close to a top 5 closer in fantasy drafts next year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely top 10. I'm pretty confident in Cade Smith. I don't think we see Clase, at least next year. So Smith should get another year to run with that role. And Hunter Gaddis is like the only guy behind him. I mean, Sabrowski's really good, but left-handed. I don't know if they would probably go to get Gaddis before him anyway, but I don't think Gaddis is much of a threat. So yeah, pretty solid pick there in Cade Smith. Yeah, I'd say easily top 10, possibly top 5 closer for next year.
Okay. In Detroit, Will Vest has been one of the best relievers for the Tigers over the past couple of years. He's got a 50-50 chance of being the closer next year, dependent on whether or not the Tigers bring somebody in and how they end up using that bullpen. Yeah. I think you got Alex Lange here as a sleeper, which is interesting considering there's really nobody else that is a sleeper. Troy Melton could mix in here as well. He's a young starter turned reliever, and he's found a success with a 2.54 ERA.
His role could be, it's kind of like Grant Taylor, where he could go back into the rotation.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Totally. And the Tigers really don't have a set rotation, given they've got guys like Charlie Morton on the team. Yeah. So they'll have some openings in that rotation. But Will Vest seems to be pretty safe in that role. But Alex Lange has been the closer before. He's figured things out a little bit again in the minors this year. But maybe a prospect like Andrew Dunford comes out of nowhere and claims that role. But it's most likely that Vest is the closer, at least to open the season for the Tigers.
Yeah, I gave Vest 50%, Lange 10%, Melton 10%, leaving 30% for them to sign another veteran to at least, share the role with Vest if that's what happens, or maybe it goes to maybe Bo Brisky, or maybe someone internally makes
just a year early.
Yeah, someone internally steps up that we're not talking about. So. Yeah, it's the Tigers. I don't think anything is going to be set in stone with that bullpen as long as AJ Hinch is there. He likes to mix and match. So yeah, I think Vest is still the best bet for now, but I'm sure we'll see some interesting because they're losing. They lose a few veterans here, so they'll have to fill in some spots, and maybe they make a move for someone who's got some closer experience who can kind of push Vest.
Okay. In Kansas City, we've got pretty much a lock for the closer role. Carlos Estevez is under a pretty decently sized contract for the Royals. He's leading baseball in saves this year, was solid last year. 95% chance that Estevez is the closer again next year. I mean, you could probably put it at 99. I mean, they're not,
you never know what happens in the spring. An injury could happen.
They're not going to anybody else. No, you got it right. You got it right. But Lucas Erceg would definitely be the next man up. So if anything happens to Estevez, it would be Lucas Erceg. Steven Cruz is somewhat interesting. He is on the 15-day IL right now, but maybe a deep sleeping option. And if a prospect wants to throw his name in the ring, Yeri Perez is one to do it.
Yeah, I think Estevez, barring injury or just some sort of meltdown in the spring or something, he should be the guy there. That's not really a question.
In Minnesota, it's going to be pretty difficult to determine who the closer is. I feel like this is a prime spot for them to go out and get a reliever. Maybe this is the Kenley Jansen spot. I don't think he's the type of guy who wants to go play in Minnesota. Considering where he spent most of his career, but it could be possible we see Kenley Jansen go to Minnesota. However, the favorite right now for saves would either be Cole Sands or Justin Topa. You've got Sands over Topa, considering Sands' stuff is a little bit superior to Topa, but the Twins seem to favor Topa over Sands during the season. So who knows? That could go either way. You got Sands at 35% and Topa at 30%, whereas Cody Funderburk could be a deep sleeper if the Twins want to go with a southpaw. He's been all right for them over the past couple of years. He's got some decent stuff for a southpaw. But this is definitely one of those situations where a prospect could actually take this role. I don't know if it's going to be Adrian Bohorquez, but he's certainly a guy that could get the opportunity if it's presented to him.
Yeah, I think, and even with like Minnesota, I don't know what their lane is or what their, if they're buyers, sellers, looking to win now, looking to sell, I don't know.
Definitely, I think they're definitely sellers, considering they traded away their whole team.
Yeah, but they have Buxton. They still have a pretty good rotation.
I think I know we're getting off topic, but I feel like either they're holding on to guys to trade them again, or trade them at next year's deadline to sort of just continue the rebuild, or this offseason we're just going to see the Twins be sellers even further. It's hard though to trade everybody on your team and still get people to show up to the ballpark. And I know the Twins, they just sell the team.
They might have recently. I'm not positive on that, but I think there's a chance that they
decided not to sell the team.
They're gonna add somebody. They're gonna add someone in free agency. Is it a closer? I don't know. But again, just there's enough free agents out there that have some closing experience or just the stuff to be closers that I feel like they'll wind up with someone probably. I don't know. I guess I'm leaning more towards Sands than the field at this point. It's what do I have it at? Like 30%. Yeah, pretty much 35% Sands, 30% Topa, 30% the field, and 5% Cody Funderburk. But yeah, it's wide open there. But Sands, I know they've preferred Topa, but Sands is the one that I would be more interested in. So I give him a little bit of a boost, just based on his stuff.
Yeah. Well, it looks like the Twins ownership decided not to sell. They're looking for new investors. So it's possible. I don't know if that means that they would want to keep the team cheap, like sell everybody so that somebody can buy the team low and then sort of do what they want with it. Or if they would want the team successful to make it more interesting.
Yeah, I feel like, they might want to gut it. Just, like, here you go. Here's a clean slate.
Right. No guaranteed contracts on there or anything. Right. So, like, I don't know, guys like Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez and Bailey Ober, I feel like they're all going to be on the trade market this offseason if they weren't already at the trade deadline. And they traded all their hitters pretty much, and the only one still around is Byron Buxton, and he said he's not going anywhere, and he's got a no trade clause. So I feel like, it's just going to be, once you trade those starters, it will look a lot more like a team that's rebuilding.
Yeah. And maybe even just keeping Buxton around might get some people. I mean, that he's got a lot of pull in that city and that team. So keep him around and then, go from there. But
I'm so glad he finally had a healthy season, because man, there were so many years where I played MLB The Show and like did a fantasy draft and drafted him, and he was like my top prospect. And I don't know, Byron Buxton's been on my mind throughout his entire career. Okay, we'll keep this moving. Going to the AL West, we have another team where it's difficult to determine what they're going to do. The A's right now, it feels like the favorite might be Justin Sterner. He's leading the team in holds right now. He has no saves, but he's also got some of the best strikeout stuff in the bullpen. Yeah, much better recently too. So, in the second half, because he started off pretty solid. He started off pretty solid, then really fell apart. They sent him to the minors. He came back, and now he's looking much better again. So he might be the favorite for saves there. But guys like Hogan Harris and Elvis Alvarado could be in the mix as well. Alvarado might have a leg up over Harris because he's a righty, but I don't think that might not stop them, because Harris was a former top prospect for them and has 3 saves to Alvarado's 0. So if we're just looking at 2025 as an indicator for the A's, maybe Harris does have a higher chance than Alvarado, who's got better strikeout stuff. In the prospect sphere, Braden Nett may be able to throw his hat in the ring, but I also feel like the A's are primed to bring in an external addition, which I think you've left room for in your percentage projections.
Yeah, I think Harris is just in there because he leads the team in saves currently with 3.
That's ridiculous.
But that's only adding up to 45%. So I'm saying 55%. They're going to bring in a closer. And it might not be like, they tried with Leclerc.
That did not work.
And that's why I think I mentioned it last week or a week before. Like Kenley Jansen seems like a guy, like a stopgap that they could go for.
Stay in California.
Yeah, exactly. Stay, don't move too far. Stay within some nice weather.
Mm-hmm.
But
not that nice in Sacramento.
It's true. It's not exactly LA.
It is hot.
Okay. Well, by the way, we probably should have mentioned that Kenley Jansen's not pitching this weekend because the Angels are going to be in Colorado.
Honestly, maybe one of the smartest organizational decisions, and I doubt they were the ones who made the decision. Kenley was probably just like, it was him.
Pitching. Yeah, I guarantee you it was him. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they let him, because it seems like every time he goes there, his heart gives out.
Yeah, it's.
And I don't even say that like that's literal. That's not even a joke, because he's got heart problems and it doesn't do well with the elevation there.
Yeah, it's not. There's no reason for him to risk anything. probably Luis Garcia getting a save or two this weekend in Colorado for the Angels.
Woohoo! Robert Stevenson
or Bob Steve, yeah. But anyway, Athletics. Yeah, they're gonna add a closer, but yeah, I now I'm thinking about it like this ballpark. They're gonna still be in Sacramento next year. I want to get someone preferably who doesn't give up a ton of fly balls. So maybe I would not go after Jansen or like an Emilio Pagan. So I don't know who would make sense for them, but yeah, more likely than not, their closer is going to come from outside of the organization. But Sterner is definitely fun. I mean, he's having such a good second half. He's giving me some hope for that bullpen. And same with Alvarado, has a ton of ability. Just hasn't been consistent. But Alvarado's stuff is definitely closer-esque. It's just command and control. But yeah, A's probably going outside the organization because their lineup is built to win now. I mean, they had they had a good bullpen piece and another good starter. I mean, that team could be sneaky next year. Maybe not even so sneaky with how that lineup is. So
yeah, that lineup is fun. Exciting.
Yeah.
They are fun. I'm excited to see what that team does, and they may have honestly timed it perfectly with the move to Vegas.
I know. I know.
4 years, 3 or 4 years or whatever, that lineup's going to be at its peak, and that'll be exciting. But that's a discussion for a different podcast.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk about the Astros, where we've got another guy who's basically guaranteed the closer role. That's Josh Hader. If he recovers well from the injury that's plagued him at the end of this season, then Hader will 95% chance be the closer next season. If it still plagues him into next season, maybe somebody like Bryan Abreu gets a shot, or in a deep sleeper candidate, Bennett Sousa, maybe. He's out for the season as well with an injury, and he pitched really well in a breakout season this year. If we're talking prospects, Alan Burr Santa, that's a cool name. He could get an opportunity, but this is Josh Hader's job. They pay him way too much to not be the closer.
Yeah, it's Hader's job as long as that shoulder's intact next year. It's he'll be the closer. Even with Abreu pitching in the role for now, it's definitely Hader's job.
All right, in LA for the Angels, this is actually a really fun one, and one that we've sort of looked forward throughout the season, because the Angels bullpen has been headed by Kenley Jansen all year, but they seem to finally be getting some interesting weapons there. From the prospect standpoint, I'm starting from the bottom here, see me switching it up. Fulton Lockhart is a name to keep an eye on, but it's really going to be between these three arms: Ben Joyce, Robert Stevenson, and Ryan Zefferjohn. Zefferjohn has had a breakout campaign displaying great strikeout stuff, but he's very inconsistent. Robert Stevenson has yet to return to the form that saw him become one of the best, if not the best pitcher in baseball in the second half of his final season with the Rays. And Ben Joyce has always been a future closer since he pitched for the Volunteers, the Tennessee Volunteers, and was displaying 105-mile-per-hour fastballs and stuff. Joyce is definitely the favorite, but he is returning from a season-spanning injury, and Robert Stevenson has missed so much time with injuries as well. It's a tough situation, especially because even Zefferjohn's on the IL right now, and we're not even mentioning somebody like Reed Detmers, who could return back to the rotation, but has found success finally out of the bullpen. So really intriguing here. But you got Ben Joyce as your favorite.
Yeah, that's why I think Detmers either goes back to the rotation or they keep him in the role they've been using him in. I don't know.
The multi-inning sort of guy, high leverage. The Andrew Miller role.
Yeah, Andrew Miller, Adrian Marhone, that type of role. But yeah, I know between Joyce and Stevenson, I gave Joyce a little bit of the edge at 35 to Stevenson at 25. It might be closer to 30-30. I don't know. Because both of them can't stay healthy. Stevenson's looked better lately, and Joyce, at least, I think Joyce should be healthy enough to have a normal off season. So there's that. That's a positive sign. So they should both, hopefully nothing happens over the next week, but Joyce and Stevenson should go into the off season healthy. Hopefully they have a healthy spring training, and then we get to see how that plays out finally for the first time in 2 years since we've been talking about that bullpen. But yeah, I think Joyce gets the closer role and Stevenson is the high leverage role in a perfect world for them if both those guys are healthy and pitching well. But there's also a chance. I mean, I left so 30% chance. I think there. It's just that they're gonna add a reliever. Is it gonna be a closer? Probably not. Maybe they'd be okay with bringing back Kenley Jansen. I mean, he's pitched pretty well for them. It wouldn't be a crazy thing.
They also do crazy stuff sometimes, like bring in a star closer for like hundreds of millions of dollars just because they can and they think it's going to be like exciting. They do crazy stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw like $20 million at Devin Williams for 1 year to hey, come close for us, have a bounce back season, and then go get a long-term deal, like something like that would not surprise
or just
me.
Straight up give Devin Williams a 6-year deal. Like they would do that. Yeah. They're like very Rockies-esque, where they're like, we want an exciting, product on the field.
Yeah, a name. They want names.
Right. Man, I wish Josh Hamilton had panned out there. And Albert Pujols and CJ Wilson and literally every single person. Nonetheless,
Anthony Rendon.
Let's keep it moving. The Seattle Mariners, Andres Munoz has been the closer this year in, I don't want to say a breakout campaign, but more of like an establishing campaign where he's finally had that big save season. And I sort of feel like I don't want to say I called it because it was pretty obvious Munoz was going to be the closer and have a great season. But I was like, this is the type of guy to have that Ryan Helsley-esque season where he finally breaks out in terms of his abilities as a closer, in terms of getting a lot of saves and making himself fantasy relevant. But with Matt Brash there and having some of the most ridiculous stuff in baseball and pitching really well here in his return from, I think it was Tommy John surgery. He missed all of last season. But the only way I see Brash taking over from Munoz is if we see a sort of changing of the guard in the postseason, where it's like Munoz starts to struggle. We see the toll of the season start to take its toll on him, and maybe Brash like steps up and really establishes himself. And then you really have a battle in spring training. That's the only way I see that 10% chance for Brash occurring. I don't think Eduard Bazardo, and that's why you got him as a deep sleeper, is going to have a chance. And I don't think prospect Cole Phillips is going to throw his name in the ring with these two great options they have in Munoz and Brash. You see any other way that Munoz loses his 2026 grasp on the role?
Just injury, or crazy far-fetched thing. Maybe he's part of a trade. That's Jerry Dipoto. What?
You're gonna say like maybe he's part of like some like drug trafficking ring? I was like, oh my god! Well,
imagine watch that happen now.
I shouldn't have said it.
But no, you never know with Jerry Dipoto. He could throw him out in a trade for a bat or something.
Right. We saw Edwin Diaz get traded after his incredible seasons.
So. And Munoz's contract is about to get interesting. He's got a player option. I think he starts having a bunch of player options. Let me double check. So yeah, the only way Munoz is not closing in Seattle is if he's traded or hurt. So that's where the 90% comes from. But yeah, he starts having team-friendly player options coming up with $6 million next year, $8 million in 2027. Club options, not player options. Sorry.
Then he's not opting out.
He's not. He has no choice. The teams are going to opt in at $6 million, $8 million, and $10 million. So that's team friendly for the next 3 years with Munoz. So that could be, that's obviously great for Seattle, but it could be seen as a really good trade chip for them too if they feel comfortable with replacing him. So, long shot for sure, but Munoz could be a surprise trade candidate this year.
All right. In Texas, the Rangers have had a lot of changes in their closer role. Over the past, honestly, few seasons, they really haven't been able to establish anybody as the closer. Robert Garcia might be the favorite at this point. He's tied for the team lead in saves, but the Rangers will have they do have a lot of impending free agents in that bullpen. So there will be some opportunities. I think Josh Spores, returning from injury, may be an interesting guy. He did close out the 2023 World Series for the Rangers, so maybe he comes back. A deep sleeper is Jacob Webb with his big fastball. He throws hard. Jacob Webb, though, certainly a deep sleeper. And then if we're talking about prospects, we got William Bormy, but what happened to the guy Emiliano Teodo?
Yeah, he's just more of a starter, and he hasn't pitched that much this year.
He's back in the starter. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about him.
They have a bunch of, not a bunch, but they have a few starters that could become relievers.
Even like Kumar Rocker.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's this whole pitching staff in general is like I don't know exactly what they're going to do because they have openings in the bullpen, they have openings in the rotation. So it's we're gonna have to wait and see what happens with the Rangers and their pitching staff, but they're gonna have to add again. They're gonna add probably in free agency to the rotation and the bullpen. I would say 50% chance that their closer comes from outside the organization. Again, they're built to win now. Still, I mean, they have DeGrom. While DeGrom's still pitching well, like let's try to put something around him and let's try to get a postseason berth here next year. So I'm sure I mean, Phil Maton, he started off slow, but he has been pitching really well lately. Could see him maybe land back there. Same with Sean Armstrong. Those two guys are free agents to be. Both have been pitching great recently, so maybe one or two of them return. But yeah, a lot of different things. This bullpen's going to look different. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think the closer's on the roster right now.
All right. Well, heading into the National League, I think we got to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Braves, where they're losing Raisel Iglesias to free agency. And so you have a favorite sleeper and deep sleeper, but you left 50% off of those guys, which leaves a lot of room for somebody like Iglesias to come back to the Braves. Pierce Johnson appears to be the favorite, but sleeper Tyler Kinley. Did something just happen, or what? Did you forget to do something?
Yeah, I forgot about Joe Jimenez. I'm gonna throw him in. He'll be back next year. We'll keep it right. I had Dylan Lee as also a deep sleeper, but let's keep it right-handed friendly here. Lee will probably keep his role as the top lefty, but yeah, Pierce Johnson, Tyler Kinley, Joe Jimenez. I mean, just take your pick. Kinley's been great for them since he came over from Colorado. That wouldn't surprise me, but that's to say that I would give it 50% chance or more that they're going to go out and either resign Raisel Iglesias or they're going to go grab a closer in free agency. I don't think they're going to be in like the Edwin Diaz mix, but maybe if they can't get Iglesias back, maybe they go after like a Robert Suarez type, something like that. So yeah, I think they'll find a stopgap closer. But they do have, I mean, Johnson, Kinley, Jimenez, they have closer experience, so it's a possibility that one of those guys gets the role.
In Miami, we've seen a closer committee there. Ronnie Henriquez and Calvin Fauché have gotten the majority of the saves. We both are big Ronnie Henriquez stands over here, so we're favoring him over Calvin Fauché. But the usage that we've seen this year and sort of the lack of expected change in the personnel there, mainly the manager as well as the closing options, sort of point to the same usage next year. I don't know why things would change if the manager doesn't change and the pitchers don't change. Why would the usage change? But Tyler Phillips has sort of thrown his hat in the ring as well, so he's a deep sleeper.
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving Henriquez the extra 5 points over 5% over Calvin Fauché, just because I want him to be the closer. I think.
Right. Same.
It's like I hope that they go, over the offseason, they just go look at it, look at the numbers, look at the video, look at everything, and be like, you know what, we got to make this guy our closer. Like he's so dominant, he's so electric. He's got to be, or even like he's not even their high leverage guy. That's the thing is like. You take like Will Vest in Detroit. He's their high leverage guy. He still gets most of the saves. He doesn't get all of them, but he gets most of them. So why can't Henriquez be at least that guy? Because he's clearly their best reliever. I know Fauché's pitching well, but Henriquez needs. I want to see him have a better role next year, more consistency, because he's deserved it. He's pitched so well for them, and he 45% for Henriquez, but yeah, nothing is set in stone there.
Totally. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz is expected to opt out of his contract. Nonetheless, the Mets are almost guaranteed to grab somebody from free agency, given that the options that are returning next year aren't great, and they're just losing so many guys like Tyler Rogers, Edwin Diaz, Ryan Helsley, Gregory Soto. I think Ryan Stanek is going to be a free agent too, and probably Brooks Raley as well. No, Brooks Raley will be back.
Yeah.
Among the returning guys, maybe AJ Minter is the favorite, and Reed Garrett and Brooks Raley mix in as well. But they are almost guaranteed to go out and get somebody, and probably somebody good considering the deep pockets of Steve Cohen.
Yeah, there's no way. Like right now, the returners it's like AJ Minter, Reed Garrett, and Brooks Raley, and there's no way that's their top three next year.
No way.
It's probably not even three. All three of them might not be in the top three next year.
Correct.
So, they're probably going to overhaul the bullpen. They have the money to do it, so that's why I only gave Minter 20% chance, and that's even high. And even Garrett went on the IL today, and he's going to have an MRI. Hopefully it's not bad. Hopefully his elbow's not, done here. Because if they lost Reed Garrett, not just for this year, but next year, that would be obviously devastating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're going to go. I mean, they should probably just keep Edwin Diaz. And they got to be at least in on that. But yeah, if they don't bring back Diaz, I'm sure they'll, have some interest in Devin Williams, which would be fun. That'd be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Suarez, Emilio Pagan, Rafael Iglesias, maybe Kenley Jansen, but I think they're gonna go after a bigger fish than that.
I agree. Next, we've got the Phillies, and this is probably our last guaranteed closer we'll discuss, and that's Yohan Duran, who was acquired from the Twins at the deadline, has gotten pretty much every save for the Phillies. I don't expect them to go elsewhere, but Matt Strahm is still there, so possibility something happens to Duran and Orion Kerkering as well. But Yohan Duran pretty much guaranteed to be the closer for the Phillies next year.
Yeah, then they'll probably add depth around those three, Duran, Strahm, and Kerkering, but that should be the top three heading into next season for the Phillies.
In our nation's capital, it appears that Jose Ferrer will be the closer for the Nationals next season, as he claimed that role after they traded Kyle Finnegan at the deadline. But there's a couple of guys who could throw their hat in the ring. We saw weird usage of Clayton Beeter this past week. Cole Henry has been a solid setup man as well. Could be a deep sleeper here, but probably 50 or even greater % chance that Ferrer opens the season as the closer next year, considering how good he was, how great his stuff is, and how well he's taken to the closer role for the Nationals in the second half.
Yeah, I think 50% there, but I do think that the way that this Nationals team's growing and trending, they might look at, adding again, like a stopgap, a veteran closer, just to, lengthen things out. Because if you have, you add a closer there and then have Ferrer and Beeter in a setup role, that's a really, that's a pretty good top three for them potentially. So they might go closer route. They might just add a solid reliever who's not a closer, and Ferrer keeps the job. But yeah, for now, Ferrer looks safe, and the Nationals aren't going to probably spend a ton of money on a reliever, so it's more likely than not Ferrer is the closer next year.
Now we'll head to the NL Central, starting with the Cubs, where Daniel Palencia has been the closer basically all season long once they sort of allowed him to take over that role. He's currently on the IL, but with some competition like Andrew Kittredge returning next year, is Brad Keller going to be a free agent next year?
Yep.
Okay, so he won't be there, but Porter Hodge is returning, and he was the previous closer of the future. There's a little bit of competition. I honestly think you can bump Palencia up from 50%, not to tell you what to do with your list. You are the expert. But Palencia has had the closer role all year, and even when Kittredge was there, they didn't have any problem with that. So as long as I think Palencia returns healthy from this injury and Kittredge doesn't do some like crazy, I don't know, have like a ridiculous run where he looks like the best closer of all time, I don't know why they would not return to Palencia next year.
Okay, Kittredge is another one that's he's got a $9 million team option.
So it could go either way.
I think that the Cubs would pick it up based on how well he's been pitching for them. And there's a real chance, even when whenever Palencia returns for the postseason, I still think that Keller and Kittredge end up getting the 9th and 8th inning, or they get the highest leverage innings for them, even with Palencia healthy. So it could carry into next year. I do think even if Kittredge is getting saves this postseason, it doesn't mean that he'll get saves over Palencia next year. But so that's why I'm giving Palencia 50% and Kittredge 30%. But I feel like Palencia, just the way he pitched before getting hurt and just the way things have kind of fizzled out for him, it's trending in the wrong direction, but still big time upside with him. A lot of, his arms elite. So If he's healthy for next year, I'd prefer to see him as the closer out of everyone there.
For the Reds, they've held on to Emilio Pagan as the closer all year, but Tony Santillan has been a great setup man and has pretty much supported last year's breakout campaign. So with Pagan out of the picture next year, Santillan's probably the first man up, but there's plenty of interesting options for the Reds, and they could always go to free agency. But guys like Graham Ashcraft, who has sort of figured things out in the bullpen after struggling as a starter, and prospects like Zach Maxwell, and even I sort of like Connor Phillips a little bit too. He throws really hard, but they got a lot of talent in that bullpen. I think Santillan gets the first chance, but no guarantee he holds it all season. But if we're just forecasting for opening day, I think you're right in putting Santillan even at 40% to make room for the potential of somebody emerging later this season in the playoffs or in spring training or out of free agency.
Yeah, I think and even like Luis May, but I feel like between him and Maxwell's got a little bit more closer to him. So yeah, I think Santillan's the favorite in the clubhouse, but they got to still add someone in free agency. And again, is it going to be a closer? Is it going to be, they haven't really spent money on relievers here. Even like Pagan is like the most they've spent maybe on a reliever in some time. So I don't expect them to make a huge splash, which leads me to believe Santillan's got like the best chance here. But yeah, we'll give it a 40% chance that they add a closer either through trade or free agency. Because yeah, even losing Pagan, losing Scott Barlow potentially too. I think someone on Brent Suter's gone. They do have some openings in that bullpen, so they'll have to add.
Okay, the Brewers are returning Trevor Megill, so if he recovers well from his flexor strain, then he should have a really good shot at returning to being the Brewers closer next year. But Abner Uribe is the closer of the future and has done admirably this year in a breakout campaign. So there's a small percent chance that Uribe, leapfrogs Megill next year, considering depending on how Megill's offseason goes. I mean, Nick Mears is sort of there hiding in the shadows, but he'd need some crazy black magic stuff to go on for him to get that closer role.
You never know.
Right.
No, it's Megill. I mean, as long as he's healthy, and now that's a little bit of a question mark, I suppose. And it's been an issue for him over his career. That's why we're seeing Trevor Megill break out at what is he, 31, 32 now. So yeah, 80% chance with Megill as long as he's healthy, pitching well, he's the closer. But yeah, I mean, having Uribe as the backup as a solid fallback option is nice. And they've always had the Brewers have always had a knack for finding guys too. So I'm sure they'll find a reliever to give them some quality innings next year, maybe a potential closer. But for now, Megill with Uribe as his backup is the way things are trending in Milwaukee for next year.
In Pittsburgh, Dennis Santana is returning to the Pirates after he wasn't traded at the deadline. I suggested they should have traded him, considering he's amid a breakout campaign that didn't seem ultra sustainable. But given that he's coming back and that he was the closer following the deadline trade of David Bednar, I'd expect Dennis Santana to have the leg up over everybody in that bullpen. But the bullpen doesn't really lack interesting names. I mean, Isaac Mattson is there as the next man up. Dory Moretta has been very solid for that team. I love Justin Lawrence, and you even mentioned Evan Sisk there. He is the only southpaw in that bullpen currently, so that likelihood is very low, but there's tons of options here. It just seems like Santana, being the veteran and the previous closer, is going to get the first shot.
Yeah, and he hasn't done anything to lose the job. And like we talked about with the Pirates, they're not going to throw money at a reliever. So more likely than not, Santana's the closer. But yeah, there's no real elite option here. There's just a pretty solid bullpen. It would be cool if they had like that lockdown guy at the end in the ninth inning potentially. But
it's the Pirates.
Yeah, it's the Pirates. I mean, the Bednar was that guy for a second, and now at least Santana will be in a contract year. Maybe he takes a step forward with his strikeout stuff. All right, who knows? But yeah, pretty confident Santana will be the closer for them next year, at least to start the season.
All right. And to wrap up the NL Central, the Cardinals have used a pretty clear co-closer committee with Jojo Romero and Riley Bryan. Romero is the best reliever in this bullpen, so he's probably going to get the majority of the saves, but we've seen a pretty even split between him and O'Brien, considering the lack of lefties in that Cardinals bullpen have sort of put the strain on Romero to pitch earlier in games. There is the possibility that somebody like Matt Swanson steps up because of his success in the second half. He has been really good for them recently, especially. So there's plenty of options, but with the way that things currently stand, I wouldn't be surprised to see this co-closer committee return between Romero and O'Brien.
Yeah, I want it to be Swanson, but yeah, Romero and O'Brien have been fine. I do think, again, the Cardinals are in that weird, like, are they trying, like, what's their goal for next year? Mm-hmm. So they'll definitely look to add free agency, but I don't think they're gonna throw money at someone. I don't know. Would it be possible to like reunite with Ryan Helsley? Is that on the table? That could maybe make some sense. But other than that, yeah, if they don't add a big name here, I think Romero and O'Brien kind of share the role. But I would love to see Swanson. If it's going to be someone in this bullpen that's already here, Swanson's my guy.
All right, now we will wrap things up with the NL West, starting with the Diamondbacks, who have had every single one of their closers go on the injured list this year. It's been very unfortunate. They haven't been able to settle on anybody, and in doing so, they set the record for the most different relievers recording a save in a single season, I think with 15, which broke the Rays record from a few years ago. But returning Kevin Ginkel to this bullpen next year means that he's probably going to be the top candidate, but I wouldn't be surprised to see anybody else given the opportunity, or especially somebody being brought in from outside the organization.
Yeah, and this is a great opportunity for someone who just wants, a 1-year guy, a 1-year stopgap option. Because Martinez will be back probably late next year, probably take over the closer role in 2027, right? So, yeah, I think it's Ginkel or someone outside the organization, most likely. Yeah, maybe it's Kenley Jansen would be willing to go there. I don't know. There's definitely other 1-year rentals. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But yeah, it would be weird. I don't know. If Ginkel did anything like positive this year, it would make more. I'd probably give him more of a 50% chance, but it's just been such a it's a down year for him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think internally he's the favorite, but they'll probably go out and look for a closer, because I mean, this is a team that's still competing for the postseason with just like the most random names in this bullpen. So imagine if they still had Justin Martinez and AJ Puck. I mean, you never know what would be happening right now. So yeah, I'm sure they'll add someone to potentially get saves in Arizona.
For the Rockies, this is usually a situation we steer clear from in fantasy, but that doesn't mean everybody will. Seth Halverson was the closer for most of the season, but he's been on the IL for a while. Victor Vodnik will still be around next year, and so they'll probably be the two that are vying for the role in spring training. But Juan Mejia could throw his name in the ring as well. Patrick Bowe wrote an article about him a couple of months ago over on Pitcher List, and Mejia may be the perfect fit for pitching in Coors, but it really depends on how the manager there decides to deploy those relievers. I think Jaden Hill could even throw his name in the ring. Angel Chivigui has shown potential in the past. There's a plenty of names, but Halverson and Vodnik seem to be the top two options.
It's crazy. Chivigui is the youngest one here. That's would not have expected that. Yeah, I think I give the edge to Halverson. I know Vodnik's been pitching really well in the role since Halverson went down. He's growing on me, but I'm still leaning towards Halverson if both of them are healthy. With Mejia, maybe the outside dark horse candidate there. I don't know. Yeah, we've always talked about the Rockies not really having fantasy relevance as far as their bullpen. You kind of want to stay away. But I think I think it's more of a team contact. If they start, I don't know, and they're still like light years away from being, truly competitive. But I'm not
They're
really,
so bad.
I'm not worried too much about Coors with like these guys. It's more about just like, are they gonna have? It's Coors plus. Are they plus like having the chance to get saves? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
and
like
the
that
pitching
just
development too is terrible.
yeah, the risk just outweighs the reward for most of this. So, don't want to roster a Rockies reliever, but taking a late round shot on Halverson or Vodnik in certain leagues isn't the worst case scenario.
All right. The Dodgers will be returning Tanner Scott next year. He should be the favorite for saves. He has been all year long. It's been a roller coaster campaign for him. He's definitely not looked as good as he's been the past couple of years. And there's always going to be a ton of options for the Dodgers, but they seem to prefer Scott in that closer role. So even with Blake Trinan still around and Alex Vesia and all the other guys in that bullpen, including, somebody with a lot of potential and a big fastball like Edgardo Henriquez, Tanner Scott is definitely the favorite for saves in LA.
Yeah, I don't feel like Henriquez is, but I don't think they view him as a closer yet. Maybe, a couple years. I think that the big three are still Scott, Trine, and Vesia. And, I left a little 5% out there because it's the Dodgers. And, like, who knows? They wouldn't be shocking to me if they went after a Devin Williams, like 1 year, come be a dominant setup guy and get paid,
Right.
So yeah, I think Scott's still the favorite, even with the struggles he's had. Because Trinan's had issues too. He's been terrible lately, and Vesia, as good as Vesia is, I don't know if they would just like swap him for Scott. It doesn't seem. I don't think that's what they would, unless Scott was really, really, really struggling bad. But yeah, I think Scott's the favorite. 60% chance there, at least, if not better.
The Padres have set themselves up to withstand the impending free agency of Robert Suarez by acquiring Mason Miller at at this year's trade deadline. I think we would have him at 95% if they didn't put him as a setup man as soon as they got him, and if they didn't have so many other reliable options in that bullpen, and the possibility that they even bring Suarez back, just run it back one more time. But Jeremiah Estrada and Adrian Morejon have been so good this year. I think Jason Adam is probably going to be back at some point next year too. So that they have plenty of options there to take the role away from Miller, but he's just one of the most special relievers in baseball. So if the Padres had any reason to acquire him at last year's trade deadline or this year's trade deadline, it was to be next year's closer.
Yeah, and I think the 75% is also like, there's still talk about him moving into the rotation. Is that real? Is that going to happen? I'm not even sure if he really wants to do that. Based on some of his comments recently. So, yeah, I mean, he should be the closer next year. But maybe they really like him as this, like, the role he's in now, where he's just the high leverage guy. And maybe they're just like, we can swap Suarez out for Estrada. That makes maybe more sense. Keep Miller in the role he's been dominating in. And then, but more likely than not, it's going to be Miller. That's why they gave up a lot to get him. They want him to be closing out games. So he should be the closer next year.
All right. And we'll close things out with the Giants, where we discussed Ryan Walker's struggles recently, but he's pretty much primed to be the closer next year, considering that he last year, his position as the closer currently at the start of this season as well. He should be the closer to start off next season, but there is Joel Peguero there, who's proven himself to at least have a really fastball. Yeah. And they also have Jose Buto, who they acquired at the deadline. And honestly, this is the first situation where I think a prospect might actually factor in. Reggie Crawford is a lefty, but he was a first-round pick of the Giants a few years ago. He, I think, has given up on being a two-way guy and has focused on relief pitching, and he throws hard. He's like 100-mile-per-hour lefty, which you rarely see. So definitely some exciting stuff there. I don't know. He's definitely not going to open the season as the closer, but he's somebody that could eventually, if he like comes in and like does something like Mason Miller, where he just dominates so obviously that you sort of have to put him in that role, That would be cool. And it's interesting to see the Giants finally finding some guys with big velocity after Camilo Doval left.
Yeah, I mean, Crawford's like he's like a Aroldis Chapman, just like a physical big lefty, throws gas. But yeah, I mean, even if he's not in the closer mix, definitely going to be in the bullpen mix at some point next year. But yeah, Walker 55% for me. I left 30% out there because Buster Posey's been aggressive so far.
Sure.
Maybe they go out and make a big splash because Walker really shouldn't be the closer. Great, solid setup guy, but not typical closer stuff. So yeah, they could go out and find a guy there that makes more sense. But as far as internally, it should be Walker, and it's not like that's not, I don't think, a huge need for them. But if the Giants are really trying to be aggressive, they could attack the closer market.
All right, that will wrap up our comprehensive 2026 closer outlook. We really went through all 30 MLB teams, and as always, it took us way longer than expected. But it's that time of the season where there's so much to talk about, where it's like we can't even fit it into the next podcast because it's going to be the last podcast of the regular season. So we're going to want to recap things in that regard. So that'll be exciting. But now that the episode is over, Rick, why don't you go ahead and plug your social media and anything else you've got or anything else you're working on?
Yeah, you can find me on socials at I am Rick Graham. Currently, I mean, we have one more week of the season, so I'll be putting out lists. I don't know if I'm going to do a list next like Thursday, Friday for holds yet. But we'll see. Definitely a closer list next week, next Tuesday for the rest of the year. And then, other than that, enjoying some little bit of time off, but then getting ready for First Pitch Arizona and presenting there and all that. So lots to look forward to still.
All right. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler. You can follow the pod at In the Pen Pod. You can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com, most notably the First Pitch podcast, where I record 4 days a week. Next week will be the final week of me doing that for this year. So tune in when you can, Monday through Thursday. You can also find me over at baseballhq.com. But that will do it for this episode 137 of the In the Pen podcast. We'll talk to you all next week.